But the first thing I'm going to share with you is a framework of different stages of personal and political development of how we relate to bias and how we relate to sort of social change in general. And it's three stages of growth. Number one, the savior. Number two, the ally. And number three, the comrade. The first level of this, right, which I think I was past in some ways, but had a little bit of interaction with earlier in my life, is the savior, right? The savior is someone with race and class privilege coming into a low-income community, often a community of color, thinking that you're the best because you have the most formal education, thinking that you talk the right way, that you think the right way, and that your job is to make other people more like you, right? And in the savior often acts entitled, often dominates conversations, often takes the lead on everything, isn't good at being collaborative with community members, and often doesn't check or track their own biases much at all. And for me, I think I came into a lot of this work socially aware enough not to fully manifest these things. But I think I had a few little bits of those tendencies that sometimes manifested in small ways, just in how I showed up, how I interacted with some people in the community, and sometimes I think how I thought about my work. But quickly, I think I started to move into the next stage of this framework, which is what I'll call the ally. And some of the ally is really positive, right? It involves really tracking yourself a lot more and working hard to move in the world in a respectful way. It involves gaining a lot of consciousness about the histories of white racism, as well as how bias can show up in us as individuals. But I think part of the ally as well, and obviously, we can use the term ally in a positive way, like that's fine too. And what I'm sharing is for this framework. But I think this sort of allyship thing can sometimes move to the place of what I think is really well described as an overcorrection for some of those savior tendencies. When we flip the script, right, and instead of taking up too much space and being really entitled, we get incredibly deferent and deferring and shrinking and almost like sometimes just literally holding your shoulders like this and not wanting to take up any space at all because you're worried about really enacting those savior dominating tendencies. Sometimes switching from seeing marginalized people as deficient to glorifying them and putting them on a pedestal, right? Which is still devoid of real human connection and is in its own way kind of dehumanizing. The ally really tracks their behavior in an effective way, but sometimes really gets into this place of analysis paralysis. And underneath, there's this feeling of just worrying so much about messing up and demonizing oneself. And I'll also say that, some of that is encouraged by sort of some of the dominant activist culture, kind of encourages some of these counterproductive behaviors. Also, within the ally framework, right, there's no class analysis, no knowledge of the history of how these things have been used to divide and conquer. No knowledge of one's stake in this personally. And, really stuck in that liberal analysis that we talked about in session one. And the third stage of personal and political growth is what we're going to call the comrade. And to share about this, I am going to briefly read a note that a friend and mentor of mine and Eleanor's as well wrote me for my birthday. And he said that I could share this with the group, but he didn't want to be revealed. So he will remain not revealed. All right. Happy birthday, comrade. I love that word, comrade. It defines the person who commits to others because they've all chosen which side they are on. The person who acts in unison with another because they share a vision of how the world should be organized. The person who feels that being bonded to the actions and destiny of another in the struggle for a united, equal, and sustainable world is the highest form of existence. And the person for whom this solidarity between comrades, lacking in charity, is instead grounded in humility and implies a mutuality, a we are in this togetherness. Your success and happiness is mine because the world for which you are fighting for is my world and my fight too. And we need each other to pull it off. Happy birthday, comrade. Love and solidarity forever. And so I think what this concept of being a comrade means to me, and not in terms of political action. Obviously, it means, taking action within political struggle, but in terms of the internal consciousness that we build when we move into this space, it means seeing the whole political historical picture, understanding the ways that people and that we have been manipulated, and understanding one's own stake in this, and seeing the importance of solidarity, right? And when you have some of that historical picture that we talked about today, right, you can oftentimes separate from a lot of this over personalization and actually face bias in a grounded and integrated way. And while you are actually engaging with some more looseness, right, with some more humanity and presence in real relationship with people across lines of difference. The comrade, knows that even if it is hard sometimes to try to build these bridges and build movements, that there is a long line of resistors and radicals who have worked to bridge these manufactured divisions. And that you can carry forward, that legacy that you can carry forward and find strength in. I think comradeship, right, is based in real relationship, is based in a shared vision and common interest, while still understanding and addressing different experiences based on race and class and other forms of oppression. And like that letter said, and alluded to, I think that when we can move into this space, we collectively, as comrades with one another, coming from different places, can almost emerge on a higher spiritual level, where we can come together to really do what we are what really we're destined to do. And this type of mindset shift has been super powerful, for me, as I've done my work in my life, and it's a framework that I hope is helpful for you too.